All right, sounds like we're all set. So thanks everyone for joining this session. This is the CI Tools Q&A webinar. My name's Josh Osborne and I am the Product Manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation in Auckland. And what this session is each week we go through sort of common questions that we get about the tools coming into the support desk or comments from customers during Q&A sessions for other things or for previous versions of this session. And we just go over some common things that people don't know about, give you some tips or show you functionality that might have been new or recently added or something like that. Today what we're going to be looking at is a couple of things to do with creating custom components for your cabinets. And before we get into that, I'm also just going to quickly show you something with the wall covering tool. The session will be recorded and it will be available, the recording will be available upon MyCI around about this time next week, so you can go back there and view it later if you need to, or share it with anybody else in your office who might be interested. And if you do have any questions during the session, please enter those in the questions panel in your GoToWebinar thingy-bob that you should have there. And I will look at those at the end of the session and go through and answer anything that I have time for, and I'll contact you later on for any that I don't have time to get to. It doesn't have to be anything about what I'm showing today. It can be about anything tools related or ArchiCAD related for that matter. I may not be able to answer everything on that front, but if I can't, I'll send it through to the support team here and they can get in touch with you anyway. So just enter those in the questions panel as we go, and I'll get them at the end. But yes, thanks for joining. So first of all, I'm just going to look at the coverings tool, in particular the wall coverings tool. And one thing that we had a question about just earlier on this week was about manipulating the wall coverings so that they can have custom shapes on them. Specifically, this was asking about wanting to, they had a wall that was above a roof and the roof was kind of an irregular shape, and they wanted to cut the covering around the shape of the roof that was beneath it. And the covering tool, it doesn't know about roofs below it, so it doesn't have any way to do that. But the way that we have set in the covering tool to be able to handle that sort of thing is by using custom top and bottom shapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump into the settings for this wall covering here. And we'll leave all of the actual covering settings as they are. But what we want to look at is we want to look at the configuration. And you can see at the covering type here, the top shape is set to follow the wall, which is what we want it to do in this case. Obviously, if you wanted to change that to flat or follow the wall, you can do, but we also have this custom option here. And under the base setting, we also have the same custom option. And so in this case of wanting to trace the shape of something with the bottom of the wall covering, this will almost always want to be flat, but in these cases, you'll want to change this to custom. Choose that and hit OK. And it's going to look like it hasn't done anything, which is normal. But you'll notice that when you have your covering selected, we now have 3 purple hotspots at the bottom of our covering here that weren't there before. And what we can do is just click on those hotspots. Once the pet palette comes up, we choose the little free-floating arrowy thing here. That'll let us move the node. And what we're doing here is we're now moving the bottom shape node of this wall. So at the moment it has 2 nodes, one at each end and one in the middle for bending it. And if I move this to somewhere and click, it's going to reshape the bottom of the wall covering to match where I've just clicked to. So you can see it looks a little bit confusing because the wall underneath has a surface material of weatherboards on it, but the weatherboard covering themselves have actually changed to the shape that we wanted, and you can see we now have more nodes. And this works the same way as the polyline or the slab or any other tool in ArchiCAD, where as soon as you add a node somewhere, like we just did by bending this one in the middle, it creates further nodes on that new edge. So this edge here now has a middle node to bend it further, and this edge here has one as well. So we can go through and using those nodes, trace out whatever shape you need your covering to take. And then you can go through and do the same with the tops of your coverings as well. So if you ever do find yourself in a situation where you need to customize the top or bottom shapes of your wall coverings, that's how you can do that. So just go into the configuration settings of your wall covering and set the base or top to custom, and then just go into your 3D view and manipulate them to whatever they need to be. That's the covering top and bottom cases. Hopefully that'll come in handy at some point for you. But the next thing I want to look at is custom components in the cabinets tool, which I have mentioned once or twice in other webinars, but I don't think we've really dove into that before. So I'm going to look at that today. As you might know, there's a couple of different custom components that you can use on cabinets. And so I'm going to go through the various different types that we can use, starting with a handle. So first of all, let's just place a cabinet down. I'm just going to place the default one, and I'll just stretch it a bit so that we get a couple more modules there. So there we go. So we've got a cabinet with 3 modules there, and they have the default recessed handles and a flat front. So what I'm going to look at first is changing those handles out for something else. So if you have used the cabinet tool, hopefully you already know how the modules work, but just very quickly to go over that, go into the module settings here, and you'll see a view of what all the modules are inside this cabinet that we have selected. And you can click on this to select each module and set the way you want it to behave. So there's options for the type, the front, and the handle here. And so first of all, let's look at the handles. So at the moment, they're all using recessed, you can see here. So if I select any of those, they're all set to recessed. I can come in here and I can change those to whatever I want, and you'll see it's a little bit small there, but you'll see the change come through on those modules now. And if I look down at the specific handle settings, you can see a list of the types of handles that we have, the shapes. So there's simple, turned, shell, depulled, bar, bow, recessed, finger pull, and custom. So obviously if these should cover off most cases, but if you do have some sort of custom handle that you want to use on this, say if you've got, if you want to model up a different handle that you can save in ArchiCAD, or you find an object online that you want to save as one, you can just go through here and use the custom knob to create that. So if I select that at the moment, it's not going to do anything because I don't have any in this project. So first of all, we need to make one. So let's just cancel that because I don't want to turn my recessed handles into cylinders. And now we just need to get something that we want to actually be our handle. So I'm just going to very quickly, for the purposes of demoing it, just draw up something very basic using slabs. Slabs is generally a pretty good tool for making a sort of custom object like this, because they're just sort of big blobs that you can do whatever you need to with them. Let's set this one. Okay, so rectangle there, and let's just put a little bit of a circle on top of it so that it looks like something. Obviously, you can make whatever shape you need to using this process, but for now I'm just going to make something for illustrative purposes. And what we're going to do once we have the thing that we want ready to go, we're going to save it out as a custom component. I keep on clicking the edge there, which I don't want. And I'll just center that quickly. Obviously, you won't need to do this one because there's already one that looks like this. That's fine. Okay, So in our 3D view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the elements that are part of the thing that I want to make my new handle. So I'll select both of those. And then I just go to the File menu, go down to Libraries and Objects, and go to Save Selection As. And you'll see a list of all of the object types you can save out here. And what we want in this case is we want the knob option here. So select that one. It's going to ask you what editing plane you want to use. I don't want this to look in perspective view, so I'm going to say the horizontal plane is what it should be parallel to. In almost all cases, this is what you're going to want to use, so just go with that and hit continue and save. And once you do that, it's going to ask you where you want to save that new custom component to. So I'm just going to put it in my embedded library, and I'm going to call it cabinet handle 1. Save that, and after a second, it'll pop up and tell you that it has successfully saved it. So we can hit OK there. And now we can go back to our cabinets. So we're using bow handles at the moment. Let's just go in here. We'll make a new type. Call it custom handle 1, and we'll set the shape to custom knob. And as soon as we do that, it will bring up this setting here, which lets you choose which custom object you want to use. At the moment, there's only one choice, CH1, but as you build more of these over time, if you want to, they will all show here, and you can go in and choose whichever one you want. And you can see it's showing us a preview of it here, and it looks kind of warped at the moment. And so we want to fix that before we finish up here. So we're going to look over here under the dimensions, and you can see the reason why it is looking warped is because it's using the dimensions that we were using for, I think, the recessed one or whatever we had before we created this new one. So it's 32 by 32 by 90, which is not ideal, obviously. So let's just go in here, and I'm just going to make them all 64, so that it's roughly, yeah, that looks roughly like what I drew up. And obviously you can distort the shape as you want to here, but if you enter all the same values here, it is going to make it look exactly in the same proportion as how you created the object. But if not, yeah, you can stretch it however you might need it to there. So we've got those dimensions set. We also have a setting over here for how we want the knob to be placed. So directly on the front, rotated and placed on the front, or applying as a cutter. So that's to remove a section instead. But I just want to place this one directly on the front. So I'm going to stick with that. And then I'll go back to the modules view. And instead of using a bow handle, I will go and choose our new one that we just created called the custom handle 1. Can't really see it there, but if I hit OK, we can zoom in to our cabinets and see our handles that have applied all across there. So you can use this, obviously we just created a handle using some basic elements over here, but you could also, if you find, say, an online object online, sorry, that looks like the kind of handle that you want, you could import that into ArchiCAD and save that as a custom component. You could create your own using much more complex elements. You could grab something that already existed and save that out as a custom component. However, you can get the elements to look like what you want them to in ArchiCAD. You can then save them out and use them in here. So again, the way that we got to that was just by selecting the elements that you wanted to save as, and then going File, Libraries and Objects, Save Selection As, and then choosing the knob option here. And that brings that up in the tool settings. So that's a custom handle. The next thing that we can do is we can make a custom front. So the entire front can be a custom shape as well. Obviously, in the tool by default, we have a couple of front settings, 3 of them, I think, actually. Yes, so we have flat panel, glass, and shaker as the defaults. The flat panel is a flat panel. The glass is a piece of framed glass set out that way, and the shaker is a flat panel, sorry, a normal panel with a raised piece to it. So you can use these to change them to whatever you need to with quite a lot of flexibility, but obviously there are cases where you're not going to just be able to get the shape that you want. Say if you want to do some sort of cutouts or something in the front of it, you can easily do that by just creating your own front. So again, we're just going to use the slab tool for this because it's nice and easy to work with. I'm going to draw up a rectangular front there. And then let's say I want to make this look kind of interesting with a couple of little cutouts in it. So let's go through and do that. And again, you can just create whatever it is that you might want to here. I'm just going to make some shapes that will be nice and obvious for us to see when we apply it. But you could have additional bits sticking out of it or anything like that. If you want to model a different type of raised panel than the type that we have already, you could do that as well. And let's just quickly look at that in 3D to make sure that it looks sensible. Yep, so we have a slab with shapes cut out of it. It's a little bit thick, so let's just change that. Let's make it 120. Okay, and the process for this is roughly the same as it was for the handle. So select whichever elements are part of the thing that you want to work with now. So in my case, it's just this one slab, but you might have multiple slabs or objects or something like that. And then go File, Libraries and Objects, Save Selection As, and this time we want to choose the cabinet door option. We're going to choose the horizontal plane again, hit Continue and Save, and then we'll call it CD1. Hit Save, and then after it has thought for a second, it will tell you that it's successfully done it. And now again, we can go over to our cabinets and apply that new front. So select the cabinet, go into the settings, and we're going to look at the fronts this time. Let's make it a new front, and we'll call it Custom Door. And then in our shape setting, we're going to choose Custom Cabinet Door. Once we do that again, it's going to bring up a thing to let us choose which custom one we want. CD1 is the only one there because we only have one. So I'm going to stick with that and then go back up to Modules and say that I want my fronts to be the custom door. Hit OK, and oh, and I've done something wrong. Apologies for that. I did this just before the webinar and it worked fine, and now it's not. Excuse me. What I just did is the way that it is supposed to work, but it doesn't like my object for some reason. Okay, I'm going to have to claim technical difficulties on that. I will figure out why that didn't work, because it looks perfectly sensible. Let me just try resaving it. Sorry about this. The dangers of doing live presentations. Okay. Still nothing. Okay, I'm just going to move on to the next thing, and I will have to figure out what was going on there, and I will issue a correction at the next webinar or something like that. I've done something wrong at some point. I'm not quite sure what, but the way that I have just shown is the way that it should work, and it did about 15 minutes ago. So I'm not quite sure what's happening there. But let's move on to the next type anyway. Hopefully you get the idea of how it works, and if you try it in your own project, that should do the trick. So the next custom element, sorry, that's thrown me off a little bit. The next custom element we want to look at is the muntins on the fronts. So at the moment, I'm just going to change to the glass setting here so that you can see what we've got. If I go to available fronts so that we can look at that one, you can see at the moment that it is making a rectangular grid. But if we go in here, we have a bunch of different options for how we want that to happen. So you can go through and make that whatever you need it to be. Obviously, there's a couple of different shapes you can do there, and make it sort of suit what you need it to, but it's not going to cover everything, and so you can make your own versions of these as well, again using the custom setting there. I don't have any at the moment, so that's not going to work. So let's just go and draw one quickly. Now I'm going to, hopefully, this one will work. It all looks fairly sensible. So in this case, let's draw a kind of a arc, I think. Mm-hmm. That's there we go. And then there, so it's a kind of I guess it's a banana more than anything else. And we're going to do roughly the same process as we have with the last two. File, libraries and objects, save selection as, and we're going to choose cabinet muntins this time. Use the horizontal plane again, and we'll call it CM1. Save it. Oh, that's right, the dialog telling us that it's saved. And now we can come back to our cabinets and use that setting. So let's set these to glass, and then we will modify the glass preset to use a new setting. So you can see it there, and looks horrible. Okay, I think what is going on here is that everything is offset. Very sorry about this. I'm just going to go into a blank project and do this again so that you can see it actually working properly. I think I may have messed up my my ArchiCAD origin here somewhere, but if you could just bear with me for a moment, that will be, that's coming up there. In the meantime, let me just quickly have a look and see if we've got any questions. Pop that out. Okay, that one I'll answer shortly. Someone's saying that you created some custom knobs using that process that we just did then, and then the next day they went missing. My guess is that the place that they were saved into has either gone, or maybe you were working in teamwork and the libraries didn't get uploaded or stay in the embedded library because you didn't have permission or something. I would need to check back with you for a little bit more info, but because what you're doing is you're saving an object, if when you do that, it's not saved into some place that you will always have access to, you won't be able to get that anymore. So if it's the same project that you opened and they were missing, that would mean that either you tried to save them into the embedded library, but it didn't let you, possibly because of a permissions thing if it was in teamwork. That would be my guess for that. If it was in a solo project and you were working on a different project, you just need to load the libraries from the one that you saved it out in. So let's very quickly go through and draw up a front. Hopefully this is going to work this time, but we shall see. Okay, select that. I'll just make it something regular. Change the thickness and then save it. So in here, when you're saving it out, it says save the library part to the embedded library. That's your only option there. Once you have done this, you can export them from that. But while we're saving it, this is the place to put them because that means they'll be local to this project. So let's call it CD1. Save that. Okay. And then we will place a cabinet. Actually, it might also be because I'm drawing the slabs very large. Check that as well. Okay, modules. We've got our front. Let's just go ahead and change this one. Has it done it again? It has. Okay. I am doing something wrong and I'm not quite sure what, but I will figure that out and get back to you to you guys in either the next version of the webinar or something like that. Yeah, so if you do have elements that you have saved into the embedded library and you want to get them to other projects, the way that you can do that is just in your project, go to the File menu and go to the Library Manager. And in the Libraries and Project section here, select the Embedded Library and you'll see a tab for it show up on the top. So select Embedded Library and that'll show you the Embedded Library, and you can just select anything that's in there and choose, I think it's this button here. Yeah, nope, that's the import one. This one here. Or that one there. That one there. So the one with the floppy disk with the little arrow on it, click on that and that will let you save the object out as a standalone GSM file, and then you can either import it into the embedded library in your other projects or load it in your library manager in your other projects. So yeah, if you're creating them in the embedded library and you want to put them into your other projects, that will be the way to do that. But yes, so something is going wrong here, which I'm really, really sorry about. But last thing that I wanted to show you was obviously the muntins also did something strange, which I'm still trying to figure out, but there is one more custom setting, which is the custom oven. And so what I'm going to do in this case, because I don't want to have to draw up an oven, is I'm going to go and grab an object that looks like what I want. Let's say that we've gotten one from a manufacturer's website, or you want to just put in an oven that isn't already there. So I might pop in a microwave here. So let's just go with this very standard microwave in the default library. Place that, and same process as before. Select the thing that you want to save out. Go to File, Libraries and Objects, Save Selection As, and this time we're going to choose Cabinet Oven. Call it CO1. Hit OK, and then if we come to our cabinet, we can set our module to be an oven. There we go. So we've got our oven module, and then I'll set the oven, instead of being a generic oven, I'm going to choose the custom one that we just saved. Hit OK, and that will squish our microwave object into the space available for it. And you can go back into the settings and change the dimensions for that if you need to as well. It's going to try and make it fit in the space that you've given it for the module, but you can squish it back into whatever proportion you need it to. And that one worked, which is lovely. So the first one worked and the last one worked. Something happened in the middle, and I'll figure that out later. But yeah, so that's the custom component types for the cabinet tool. Someone was saying that when you draw a cabinet, and you stretch it, it is creating repeating units at 600 as you go, which is the default behavior for the cabinet tool, but you can change that to do something else. So I'll just set this back to not my invisible custom door. And if I go down to the grids and editing section in the cabinet tool setting, you can see there's this setting here called cabinet size adjustment, and it's set to have a default width of 600 there. And that is the thing that's controlling what you're seeing, where you stretch it and it adds new repeats at 600. That's what's happening here. So as soon as you get over 600, it's going to draw a new one as soon as you get 150 over that. Otherwise, it is going to stretch the one that's smaller. And so you can change that to be whatever you want it to be. Or you can come up here and say reposition, in which case it'll just stretch the single unit that you have instead. So if I now stretch this, it will just make one really big module instead of repeating those modules. So you can either set it to do that, or you can have it do the repeating modules thing, and you can set the width that you want it to repeat on here. Obviously, because I've already stretched it, it's not going to go back and insert those, but if I were to stretch it now, it'll add those on again. So you can construct your cabinet in either way. What other questions do we have? If you do have any other questions, please feel free to fire those through, so long as they're not, why did your front not work before? Because I'm not quite sure yet. Okay. You can make modules in the horizontal. Can you make modules in the vertical? I don't quite follow your question there, sorry, Warren. I might follow up with you later after that one, because yeah, I'm not quite sure which thing you're wanting to set there. But yes, the thing about the teamwork file, yeah, it sounds like it was just saved into the project and you want them in other projects, in which case export them like I did just before, and that will make them appear in anything you load it on. Okay. So yeah, so the the modules, let's just undo that so that we have something not ridiculous looking. Just let it make a couple of those. Okay, so we've got a couple of modules there, and then if we go into settings, turn on the palette, that will go into the sort of skeleton view that lets us manipulate things, and you can see it's added the vertical module separators there from dragging it in floor plan, but we want to have horizontal ones, so go into here instead, and you can draw those up as you go. So that's set the I think that's what you mean by the asking about horizontal modules versus vertical modules. So then we just turn the edit mode back off again, which will make the cabinet normal. Go into the module settings and oops, can't quite see that. Modules. You'll see those horizontally placed modules rather than vertical ones. And then you were saying you wanted to put the oven in the middle. Yeah, so these just behave like normal modules now, so that we can go through and we can say the middle one is a oven. That's too big to fit, but you get the idea. And the top one is going to be whatever it's going to be. Go through and just construct it that way, but yes. And then that will go through and do it. So at the moment, with the way that the tool works, to add those, so in floor plan view, you can stretch it and it will add vertical module separators, but to do the horizontal ones, you need to do that in either your section elevation or 3D views. We are working on some updates to the cabinets tool, which will be coming at some point in the future. And that will give you a UI in the tool here, which actually lets you manipulate your set out in this dialog, similarly to if you've used our window and door tool, how you can work with the glazing panels. It works in a similar way to that, so you can come in here and create and add different separators and modules and set the sizing of them and that sort of thing. So that's going to be coming in the future, but for now, you would need to do that in your section and elevation or 3D view. So I'll just undo that. So got your cabinet in 3D. Go into the settings and go to grids and editing and set the edit mode to partitions because we want to edit the partitions at the moment. And when you do this, little extra bit will come up in 3D. Top one is for vertical partitions. The second one is for horizontal partitions, which is what we want in this case. So just select the purple hotspot on the horizontal partition mode. And as you move your cursor over the cabinets, you'll see it drawing a preview of what it's going to do. So you can go through here and click to place. And then if you grab the hotspot that you just placed with and move it somewhere else, that'll add in another one. So you can go through and add in as many as you need to. And then once you're done, on this edit palette here, just click on that purple hotspot and drag it up to the X, and that'll turn off this sort of X-ray view and it'll give you a proper cabinet back again. And then you can dive into the module settings and do what you need to with those modules that you just created. Yeah, hopefully that that follows. What's the time? 10 past. Okay, I think we'll finish it up there. My apologies again for the not working stuff earlier. I will figure that out. But for now, hopefully that gave you a good idea of what sort of stuff you can achieve with that when it does work. And yeah, if you do have any other questions, please feel free to send them to the support desk, which is just nz.support@centralinnovation.com, or log into MyCI and go to the My Support section there, and you can log a support ticket. I've also got a question here, someone asking about window facings in 3D and 2D. I will log a support ticket for you on that one because it sounds like something is not quite working correctly. So we'll get back in touch with you and figure out what's going on there. But yes, thanks everyone for your time, and the recording will be available about this time next week, and then hopefully next week I can go through and show you the cabinet fronts and muntins actually working as well. But thank you, and I'll catch you next time.